Hi, I'm Tony Ruda, and I want to welcome you to our new ProMusica Live series. We hope that these conversations and performances provide ProMusica Detroit members and the larger community with a meaningful connection to the arts in Detroit. This online series would not be possible without the generous support of people like Dr. Hershel and Mrs. Dorothy Sandberg, Elaine Weingarden, Nancy Salden, Stan Beattie, James Napolitan, Gordon W. Rose, and our friends here at the Steinway Piano Gallery. I am also very happy to welcome our host, Cecelia Sharpe. C. Sharpe, as she is affectionately referred to, is a graduate of Wayne State University and has been teaching and advocating for youth and the arts for over 10 years. In addition to her new role as educator and advocate for youth and the arts, Ms. Sharpe serves as a guest host at WRCJ 90.9 FM and produces the In Concert with the Wu Family Academy Showcase, as well as the Live with C. Sharpe programs. We are very fortunate to have Cecelia as our host. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Cecelia Sharpe. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be a part of ProMusica Live, this virtual experience, bringing music to audiences and just continuing to promote music. I am so excited that we have Alvin Waddles as our featured artist for the first ProMusica Live. And Alvin, don't be upset if I get this wrong. I'm gonna check out my notes over here just to make sure that I have this right, because you've accomplished so much. You were the 2018 Artist in Residence at the Tuba Bach Festival in West Michigan. You were the recipient of the 2015 Spirit of Detroit Award and the recipient of the 2010 Excellence Award from the Detroit Music Association. You've been the producer or musical director of countless musicals, featured in Ain't Misbehavin', and of course, the featured pianist in Too Hot to Handle. And then we say, and welcome, Alvin Waddles.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being with us. Talk about your journey from the beginning and who inspired you to start, because we always see the success and where you are now. How did you get started in music?
I was fortunate. My mother started me on piano lessons. We actually didn't even have a piano in the house. So to hear her tell it, I was banging on pots and pans, and she thought that we want to channel that into something more creative and less annoying. So she found a piano teacher, wonderful woman, educator in the city named Gussie Dickey, who actually was a principal at one time in Detroit. And she actually taught several people. She actually taught Pat Terry Ross, the harpist,
Mm-hmm.
as well as Alice McAllister and several other people who I've remained close with, colleagues of mine. Just a really good teacher and educator. And she instilled in me a great love of music and all kinds of music. So that's when it all started. She also encouraged me to go to Interlochen. She introduced me to Interlochen, the music camp. And I went for 2 summers, and then I discovered the Arts Academy. And I finished up my high school years there, best years of my life. Absolutely amazing place, Interlochen Arts Academy. From there, I went to University of Michigan and got my bachelor's from there, from the School of Music. And we just kind of went on from there, just came back to Detroit. It was a gradual thing. So I started, obviously, with classical. It was actually much later that I got into any other kinds of music. Even gospel came relatively late. I grew up in St. Stephen AME Church. And quite honestly, if it wasn't written down, we didn't do it. So there wasn't a whole lot of gospel there, a lot of anthems, spirituals, that sort of thing. Really. So, you know, a lot of the gospel training that some of my colleagues got from their, you know, from their youth, from their actual experience in church, I came to rather late. I was actually in college before I got my first church job and actually had to learn the gospel things by ear. And even later, we came with the jazz. During my time at U of M, I kind of learned more gospel and developed a great love for musical theater. And did a lot of musical theater work while I was there. Probably the last thing that I came to was jazz, and that wasn't until I got back to Detroit after I left the University of Michigan that I was exposed to the incredibly rich tapestry of jazz music and artists in Detroit. And I'm thankful to so many of them, two of them who are joining me on the concert this evening, Marion Hayden and Dave Taylor, for, you know, accepting me, not being dyed in the wool jazz, but they were very, well, you know, you got to have some kind of pedigree.
Right.
They really, the Detroit jazz community is a marvel. They are very wonderful. They are very mentoring. They're encouraging, and just a good group of people. People like the late Marcus Belgrave, who gave me many opportunities to perform with him. So that's it in a nutshell.
Wow, yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you about Detroit and just being nurturing and mentoring in the jazz community. It's Marion Hayden, who I look forward to hearing, and Mr. Marcus Belgrave, just wonderful people, and the family goes on and on and on, and they do welcome you into the family. Can you talk about, you mentioned being that you didn't get into gospel or jazz until later on. Was it challenging for you to make the transition or intertwine the different genres? How did you feel about that as you navigated your way into jazz and musicals and gospel?
Musicals weren't that hard because, again, things are written down. Actually, gospel was rather difficult for me because early in my training and studying piano, the idea of playing things by ear was kind of beat out of me because my teacher discovered very early on that what I was doing is I would go home and I would have my mother play the pieces and I would just play them. So 100 years ago, I actually probably did have an ear that was worth something. But my teacher told my mother, don't do that anymore. He's not reading. So I had to reteach myself to learn things by ear because when I first started getting the gospel, nothing was written out. I mean, these days you can go online, you can find a lot of stuff, you know, charted out and written out. But back then, that wasn't the case. You had to pick up everything by ear. So I had to actually retrain myself to play by ear, which is why now when I deal with people, even beginning students, I always encourage them, do both at the same time. You know, continue to train your ear, but also learn to read music, because trying to pick up either one after the fact is a bit of a chore. By the time I got to jazz, it was, you know, that's a different animal altogether. And even to this day, I don't necessarily consider myself a jazz artist, though I know depending on what write-up what I'm doing, that's how they'll characterize me. I'm probably a little more of a hybrid, because I don't ever limit myself no matter what I'm playing unless it's something classical. Other things creep in. There's a lot of classical, there's a lot of gospel in my jazz. And that's just the way I prefer it. That I think, you know, if you don't have something original or authentic to say, I'm not sure it's really worth your saying anything. So I've never really tried to sound like anybody else. I listen to everybody and have culled different things from different artists and different genres. And it always has to be something that I feel I can speak through. So hopefully, whatever comes from the heart goes to the heart. I stole that from Beethoven. Sorry.
That's okay. We forgive you. I stole that one from Beethoven. Yeah.
I think you have to speak directly. Try to speak directly to people. Otherwise, I don't think people can really hear you, or So that's always my intent. Is just communication.
As you talked about what you talk about to your students, what would you say to educators and the importance of teaching that balance, a well-rounded music education that is not just depending on your ear, not just reading, it's not just theory, it's not just the technique, it's not just I feel this so much, but it sounds like, cat scratch. Talk about, what would you say to an educator?
I always ask students what they want to do, and try to kind of craft a methodology that fits that goal. If they're really interested in church work, then I give them a hymnal. I just say, just read through the hymnal. Not just the hymns you know or think but just the ones you've never heard of before. But really, it depends upon the student. Again, if I can give any advice to teachers, it's take time to understand what your student wants to do and what their real goals are, instead of just fitting them in some box as to everybody should learn this because everybody should do it the same way. It just doesn't always work that way.
So we're going to start this concert off with the music of Bach. Would you like to introduce this piece, Alvin?
This piece has actually been with me a long time. I actually played it as a jury at Interlochen, my graduate year, the entire partita. I always liked this particular movement. Most of the partitas start off with just a prelude or a shorter movement. This is actually a ABA type of form. It starts off with this toccata and then goes into a 3-voice fugue and then returns to the toccata to end it up with. So it's really self-contained. It's actually, it stands alone relatively well. And my teacher always told me, start your recitals with Bach. So that's what I'm doing.
Taking advice from his teachers and starting the show off with the toccata from Keyboard Partita number 6 in E minor, composed by Bach. We just heard the toccata from keyboard partita number 6 in E minor. And we're going to shift gears just a little bit, okay, maybe a lot now, and jump into St. Louis Blues. Tell me about why you chose St. Louis Blues and a little bit about the piece.
We were looking for something different. We were trying to cover as much ground in this recital as possible, hopefully to reflect what I do. And this was something that generally when we do it, I do it with a more kind of a Latin flair to it, at least one section. It's an interesting piece because it starts off with a theme that never really comes back, depending on whose version you hear it from. It's a straight up blues, and then it kind of has this other almost Latin as we interpreted theme, and then it goes into just a straight kind of swing little bop tune. It was a tremendous hit for W.C. Handy, who actually I was looking it up and looking up different performances of it, and I came across one, and he actually played it on the Ed Sullivan Show. He strolled up right out there with his trumpet and tootled right along. So I thought it would be something good. You don't hear that much anymore, but that's why we chose it for this particular concert.
Next up, you have it, St. Louis Blues, composed by W.C. Handy.
You just never know.
Just never know. I might go out on a forecourt.
We were talking about W.C. Handy's piece, The St. Louis Blues, which we just heard. And it turns out his father was not a fan of him playing the blues. His father was a pastor. And they, you know what they said about the jazz and the blues during that time. And music was not to be played.
Not to be played.
Not at all. His father actually invested in him getting an organ. We're going to steer you as far away from this music as possible, but we know that it didn't work.
Well, no, it didn't work for him. It didn't work for Fats Waller either. His father was also a pastor. So try as they might, that sort of music just kind of prevailed.
Alvin, you're a Detroit native, and as I said, a world-renowned musician, composer, musical director. You traveled around the world and you could live anywhere, but you choose Detroit, which is full of a rich musical history and culture. Tell me why Detroit is so special to you.
There's a lot of things that are special about Detroit. I think more than anything else, it is the musical community. And I'm fortunate enough to go in between several different musical communities, the jazz community, the gospel community, the classical community. And I find all of them to be filled and populated with extremely talented people, and also very giving and artists. And you don't find that everywhere. When I left the University of Michigan, a lot of my colleagues and fellow graduates were headed to New York, and a lot of them said that's where you need to be. I still get have people in New York who say you ought to be here, and I do a lot of work in New York. I have over the past over the years. I travel frequently there to do different things. But that I discovered very early on that you can always get on a plane. You can go on a plane and get anywhere you have to go, and and do whatever you have to do. But I never really wanted to live in New York. I like it here. My family is here, and my musical family is here, and I've learned so much from being here. And I think that's the most important thing. I mean, you won't find another city anywhere, I don't care what they tell you, with artists of the caliber of those that have come out of Detroit. I mean, if you just started with the gospel community alone, and talk about people like the Winans and Thomas Whitfield and the Clark sisters, and those tremendous trumpets, right? Yeah. Rance Allen, who we just lost.
Yeah.
All of those people are from this area. And to be able to sit up under them and learn from them. And then you have all the jazz artists and some amazing classical artists who are based here. It's just, you can't beat that kind of rich heritage and legacy. And I've always tried to represent it to the best of my ability, and again, try to give back where to the community that I got so much from.
It's fall time, and we have this love ballad that you're going to perform. The love ballad composed by Oscar Peterson. Can you set this up?
Okay, this is one of my favorite pieces by Oscar Peterson. I was fortunate enough to hear him the very last time he played Detroit. He was at Orchestra Hall, and this was one of the pieces that he did. And it happens to be one of my wife's favorites, so that's another reason why it's on the program. But I know. Well, you got to do what you got to do.
Mhm.
But it's a different. It's a slow ballad. It's a very pretty piece. He opens it up with an extended piano solo, and then the trio joins in. So it just from the very first time I heard it, I said, "Oh, I could do that." It spoke to me. And again, I always try to pick pieces that speak to me in some way, because if they speak to me, then I feel I can speak through them to someone else. So that's why I chose this very lovely piece by Oscar Peterson.
Ladies and gentlemen, Oscar Peterson's Love Ballad with Alvin Waddles and Friends. friends Alvin Waddles, Dave Taylor, and Marion Hayden performing the Love Ballot composed by Oscar Peterson. I hope that you're enjoying this show thus far. Presented to you by ProMusica Detroit. It's the first virtual live concert and so happy to be your host. I'm Cecelia Sharpe from WRCJ, and glad to have Alvin Waddles here. So, we haven't had the opportunity to attend live concerts. The audience has not been able to interact with the musicians or talk during intermissions, in between the sets, or anything like that. So, Alvin, I thought I would ask some questions from the audience. So let's hear what they have to ask. Anne wants to know, what is your favorite type of music to play?
Whichever type I'm playing at that time. um, and I know that sounds evasive, but that's actually true. Um, I actually go long periods without playing certain genres of music. Sometimes just because of how scheduling issues, that's just what I'm scheduled to do, and sometimes just because I need to take a break. I take long breaks from classical music sometimes, just so I can come back and revisit au repertoire and have a fresh ear. I think every type of music that you do informs another type of music, or another genre. I don't think anything exists in a vacuum, or at least I don't choose to operate that way. So everything I do when I return to another genre, it's a deeper experience, because of something I picked up doing something else. So I don't know that I have any favorites, but if I had to pick one, my first love has always been classical music. So I'll give you that much.
And you got it out of him. It's classical if he had to pick a favorite, but he's Alvin Waddles. He's well versed at all of the genres, and definitely we know that you immerse yourself in the music that you do. And as you said, when it's in your heart, it speaks to the hearts of others. So I know that's your main goal.
Absolutely.
All right, another question comes from Anthony. When did you realize that you wanted to dedicate your life to music? And who were some of your idols or heroes that influenced you when you were just getting started?
I think from a very young age, I realized that I wanted to be a musician. Um, One of the things I tell a lot of young musicians is your future or career path rarely looks like what you think it's going to. Like most pianists, I started classically, so my idols were classical pianists at that time who were still performing, Rubinstein and Horowitz. Um, and Argery is still one of my very favorites. My first thought was I was going to be a concert pianist. Well, you learn relatively early on that's not going to happen. At least not in the way that you view, Horowitz and Rubinstein and artists of that ilk. There's just not that much room at the top, but you find other things to do with your training and your talent. Different idols have come up as different as I've had to attack different genres. Again, as I think I said before, it didn't all start at once. I pretty much took one at a time. It was classical, then gospel, then jazz, and show tunes. So different idols in different genres. Certainly Oscar Peterson is a great idol of mine from the jazz field. Thomas Whitfield was a tremendous inspiration to me in the gospel field. And I'm actually a big fan of Bernstein and Sondheim when it comes to musical theater. There's just the music that speaks most closely to me, though I love some of the stuff that's been on Broadway recently. I didn't expect to even like Hamilton, and it was amazing. I got to see it in New York. I got to see it in Chicago. And really, I'm not even a rap fan, but what they managed to do, I just have to applaud him. He's a genius. He really is. So again, as another thing that I tell other musicians, especially young people, it's like don't ever discount anything. Listen to everything.
Mm-hmm.
You may not like everything, but try to find the value in everything, because all genres of music have some value. You may not be able to speak through it. It may not be for you to perform, but it enriches your artistry and your life, just to know and be familiar with it and to find the beauty in it.
Especially during these times, you can apply that to anything. We're all different, and we all bring our unique flavor to the mix, and every little flavor may not be for you, but you definitely can appreciate what everyone has to bring. And I think that's one of the lessons that you can teach, that you're sharing with others, just using music as the vehicle to get there, just learning everything you may not agree with and you may not like it, but you can appreciate it, value it, and respect it.
Absolutely.
So we're going to stay a little bit in alignment with that value, with the piece Black and Blue. Comes from Hot Chocolates from 1929, was when it hit Broadway, June of 1929. It was an all-Black cast in New York. Wondering why you chose that particular piece.
You know, for years, probably the past 10 years or so, I've been doing a Fats Waller review, which was something that came out of nowhere. On the 100th anniversary of Fats Waller's birth, Jim Ruffin, late Jim Ruffin, who had a series that he produced at Grosse Pointe Unitarian Church, a jazz series, and he wanted to do a tribute. And he actually approached Marion Hayden, my good friend, and she said, "Oh, I think I know someone who could do this." Now, at the time, I was touring with the Three Mo Tenors, and I was on the road, and she called and she said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, that sounds like fun. Remind me about it." Well, a day before, I was still on the road, and she said, "Well, how are we coming with that?" And I said, "Oh, it's tomorrow." And I said, "Oh, yeah." So I pulled every Fats Waller thing I could find, and we put together the show. But the response was so favorable. I mean, people knew the song, and it really resonated with people. And so, I've been doing it ever since. And he has such a huge discography, and the amount of songs that he recorded. So there's a lot to draw from. So you can change it up all the time. This particular song, though, really struck me. It is one of the few pieces that, to my knowledge, Fats Waller never actually sang. He did record it, but only as an organ solo. Actually, you hear several recordings of it, who really made it quite popular, was Louis Armstrong. I just like the way it expresses a certain point of view. There's a certain spirit about it that I just think really resonates. And when generally, I don't do it all the time. I don't even do it that often. And when I do the Fats Waller show, but every now and then I pull it out, and it just kind of stops the room, because it just makes you think about a lot of things, socially, systematically, however you want to view it.
Fats Waller's Black and Blue with Alvin Waddles, Marion Hayden, Dave Taylor, and a special feature. Is that right?
That's right. My son Dominic on the tenor saxophone.
And Dominic Waddles on the tenor saxophone, Black and Blue.
springs hot as lead. Feel like old Ned, wish I was dead. What did I do to be so black and blue? Even the mouse done run from my house. They laugh at you and scorn you too. What did I do to be so black and blue? I'm white inside. Oh, but that don't help my case. 'Cause I can't hide what is in my face. See, I'm white inside. Oh, but that don't help my case, nah, love. 'Cause I can't hide what is in my face. How will it end? Ain't got a friend. My only sin is in my skin. What did I do to be so black and blue?
And we're going to go back to questions from the audience. And Alvin, this next question, well, it's not a question, it's a statement from an adoring listener. Miss Rosemary says, please continue to bless others with your gift of music.
Well, thank you, Rosemary. I certainly intend to. I'm grateful for this opportunity to ProMusica. Like most of my colleagues, I haven't been performing nearly as much as I used to. And it has actually given me an opportunity to appreciate some things that I took for granted not even a year ago. And the importance of staying connected and sharing with other people. I think people need it even more now than ever. So I'm honored to have the opportunity to share in this format, in any format, and to hopefully connect with fans out there. So thank you for your continued support.
Thank you, Rosemary, for that statement. And we have a question that is definitely in alignment with these pandemic times. This question comes from Stacy, and Stacy asks, what do you advise young and upcoming musicians to do to get their name out there and to get work if you cannot gig or tour or play in the time of COVID?
Well, there are still opportunities out there to perform virtually. It depends on what kind of music you're doing. Several jazz clubs are actually opening in some ways. Certainly not as many as there were, so it can be kind of tricky to get into them. I would take advantage of this virtual atmosphere that we're experiencing and take time to produce some things yourself and put them out there online. You'd be surprised at the number of people who will see them, and it will introduce you to some people that before this time of COVID didn't spend as much time online, but everyone's online now. And put yourself out there. Create. Use the time. I was, like most of my colleagues, or many of my colleagues, I was devastated in March and April. I thought that just the world had come to an end. And I was almost paralyzed with the fact, because my entire calendar for the rest of 2020, going well into 2021, just disappeared in a week. Mm-hmm. And my reaction to it was just panic. But after a while, you kind of realize that this too will pass. And I took the time to explore new repertoire, to try to become more technically savvy, and just to learn some things that generally when I'm performing, I didn't have time to learn. You know, you're so busy preparing your next show or getting ready for your next gig, you don't really have as much time to practice and to work on your craft and to just spend some time away from your instrument thinking about what you do and why you do it. So my best advice is take this time to really figure out what you want your future to look like. Because, you know, the new normal is going to be just that. It's going to be new. It's going to be different. It's never going to look the way it used to look. So you can put yourself in a position to be on the cutting edge of something new. Create something. But make sure that it's a reflection of who you are and what you want to say. Because at the end, that's all that's really important, is that you're saying something that's authentic in whatever format you choose to put it out there. Because people are listening and people will hear you.
Great advice, not just for musicians, but for many of us who find ourselves struggling during these times as we reflect on what we were or what we had and where we are now and who we really are, who we are at the core, at the center, and going forward. So excellent advice. I want to know, I have a question for you. What do you see being next for you? What's in the future for Alvin Waddles? What is something that you would like to accomplish that you haven't done?
Well, before the world came to an end, I had always thought that my next line of work would be to spend some time in Europe. We'll see if that comes to fruition. I actually find myself having had the time recently to do more writing. I just did an arrangement for Humanity Rising, which was a online special fundraising for the rebuilding of the Notre Dame Cathedral. And I set a popular French hymn for my good friends Rod Dixon and Alfreda Burke, who were also always seen in Too Hot to Handle, to sing for this particular special. And it was very well received. And I just realized I haven't really done as much writing. There have been several projects that I've always wanted to tackle in terms of writing that I just never had time. Again, when you're always playing somewhere or doing something like that, you just don't have time to do things like that. So I really think that probably the future, that's what I'm going to do more of. If I can do anything, spend the rest of my time doing anything, it's really just trying to help others to get a toehold and use whatever voice or influence I have to give other people opportunities to perform. Last year, I did the sixth iteration of Evening with Alvin Waddles, which is a concert that I produced, started producing about 10 years ago, and do just about every other year. But it features a full orchestra, and it wasn't so much an idea of something, a vehicle for myself, as it allows me to allow young artists who I've had the good fortune of working with and meeting to have the opportunity to play with an orchestra, which it seems like a relatively small thing. It's just a one-night concert in relatively small venues. We did it at Salden the year before. But, you know, young artists, I know for a fact, part of what they study, string players, piano players, vocalists, they study all this repertoire, these concerto repertoire, and unless you win somebody's concerto competition, you never even get to play it with an orchestra. So I just want to give people an opportunity to perform in front of an appreciative audience, and I'd like to do more of that, just producing, you know, concerts and providing opportunities for young people to get opportunities to work with professional musicians and to be heard and to be seen. So they don't get discouraged. It's a hard life, just living in a practice room for years and years and years, but we all have to do it. That's just the nature of it. And you need some kind of encouragement, some venues, some opportunities. And I know people gave me opportunities. So at this point, it's all about giving back. That's what I really want to spend the remainder of my time doing, while I still can, while people still know my name. I can put it to some good use for somebody else, hopefully.
Well, you've definitely been doing that and embodying the culture, keeping the culture of Detroit going, reaching back to help someone along the way, providing a platform, a megaphone for younger musicians. And it's totally important that musicians have that opportunity to perform. Students love to perform, even fifth graders, third graders, they work so hard. And to not showcase all of that hard work, not to have others, even if it's parents, which they love it, to see the fruits of their labor, their children's labor, and everything that they had to listen through the doors, the tears, the hard work, the accomplishments, the commitment, the perseverance. The performance is that final presentation where you're able to release all of that. And you having this concert every other year, or presenting the young people, giving them this opportunity, is definitely necessary. Looking forward to other ways that you will be giving back, as you say that is your next goal, to continue to give back and just continue their tradition of Detroit musicians. we are going to close out this show with a piece from West Side Story from the iconic composer Leonard Bernstein. And you're going to perform Jump from the gym scene. But it's not just the jump, because jump is really only 51 seconds long. You've really taken this and made it something. Tell me about this piece, Jump, your variation, your arrangement.
Well, a couple of years ago, we celebrated the 100th anniversary of Leonard Bernstein's birth, and as part of that, I did a set for the Detroit Jazz Fest featuring music of Leonard Bernstein. So we kind of took different popular and some not so popular things that he had written and cast them in a jazz format. You're absolutely right. This comes from the big scene at the gym, and it's one of several songs that kind of just goes under that whole scene where Tony meets Maria, and it's a really quick tune called Jump. But it always caught my ear. I just thought it was just the cutest little tune. But you're right, 51 seconds wasn't going to make much of a jazz tune. So what we did is we added a solo section, about an 8-bar solo section, and we all just took some choruses and add some drum trading at the end using the main theme. It still, I think, only comes out to about 4 or 5 minutes, but it's a catchy little tune. So, since I thought it would be a good closer, so you can get up and kind of move around to this one, if you so choose, or if you got to go to the bathroom, you can jump over there and jump right back. And
well, ladies and gentlemen, Alvin Waddles has invited you to get up on your feet, dance around as we welcome back to the stage Alvin Waddles, Marion Hayden, and Dave Taylor in Jump, the extended version from West Side Story. 1, 2. Alvin, thank you so much for giving of your time and sharing your gift with us and everyone joining in on ProMusica Live for this concert. Definitely enjoyed having you and sharing in this conversation.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And definitely look forward to what's coming up next from Alvin Waddles. Thank you once again. I'm Cecelia Sharpe, and I'd like to invite you to come back on December 17th, 2020. You can go to the website, ProMusicaDetroit.com, for more information on how to donate and become a member. Thanks again for tuning in.